Welcome back. It's lovely to see you again. A man makes the ultimate sacrifice for his very best friend. Would you do the same? I do hope you enjoy this tale. The sterile scent of antiseptic and the low hum of the fluorescent lights filled the small veterinary examination room. John sat on the cold metal chair, his hands tightly clenched, and anxiety etched across his face. His loyal companion, Max, lay on the examination table, a shadow of his former lively self. Dr. Anderson, the somber-faced veterinarian, with a gentle demeanor, entered the room, his eyes conveying the heavy news he carried. John stood up, bracing himself for the inevitable. "John, I'm afraid Max's condition has worsened," Dr. Anderson began, his voice tinged with regret. "The illness has progressed to a point where he's in significant pain and his quality of life is rapidly declining." John nodded, his throat tight with unshed tears. Max, once vibrant and full of life, now lay on the table, a mere shell of a dog he had raised from a pup. "I know how much means to you," Dr. Anderson continued empathetically. "Keeping him alive in this state would only prolong his suffering. It's a difficult decision to make, but I recommend considering euthanasia to ensure he doesn't endure any more pain." John's heart sank. A lump formed in his throat. He couldn't bring himself to say the words. The very thought of letting go, unbearable. Dr. Anderson laid a comforting hand on John's shoulder. "I'll give you some time alone with Max," the veterinarian offered, giving John a moment to gather his emotions. Alone in the room with his alien companion, John gently stroked Max's fur, feeling the frailty beneath his fingertips. Max's eyes, once bright and full of life, now had a glimmer of pain and weariness. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on John's chest. "I can't bear to lose you, Max," John whispered, tears streaming down his face. "But I can't let you suffer either." As the moments passed, John made the agonizing decision to let Max go peacefully. He nodded to Dr. Anderson, signaling that he was ready to say his final goodbyes. The vet prepared the necessary medications, and as the syringe pierced Max's skin, John whispered words of comfort to his beloved companion. "I love you, Max, always." Max's labored breathing slowed, and his eyelids drooped. The room fell into a heavy silence as the veterinary confirmed Max's passing. With a heavy heart, John left the veterinary clinic, carrying the weight of grief as he faced an outside world without his cherished friend. Little did he know, the loss would set in motion a series of events that would challenge the very fabric of life and death itself. The days that followed Max's passing were a blur for John. The emptiness at his home echoed the absence of his four-legged companion. The once familiar sounds of paws on the floor and the joyous barking that greeted him every day were replaced by an eerie silence. Unable to shake the overwhelming grief, John found himself haunted by memories of Max. Sleepless nights and tear-stained pillows became his new reality. The pain of loss gnawed at him, pushing him to the brink of desperation. One evening, as darkness settled over the town, John sat at his computer, the soft glow of the screen illuminating his weary face. He had stumbled upon an obscure forum, a clandestine corner of the internet, rumored to hold secrets beyond the realm of the ordinary. Whispers of necromancy and forbidden rituals intrigued him. In the dim light of his study, John delved into the mysterious world of the occult, seeking a way to defy the natural order and bring Max back. The more he read, the more he became convinced that there were individuals with the power to traverse the boundaries between life and death. Guided by a newfound sense of purpose, John reached out to the contacts on the forum, seeking the assistance of those rumored to possess the forbidden knowledge he sought. Messages exchanged in hushed tones led him to a mysterious man known only as Lucius, who claimed to be a necromancer with the ability to bring back the dead. A clandestine meeting was arranged, and John found himself in a dimly lit alley, face to face with Lucius. The air grew heavy with an otherworldly presence as the necromancer spoke, his words carrying a weight that resonated with both power and warning. "Bringing back the dead comes at a price," Lucius cautioned, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. "The natural order must be balanced, and the spirits disturbed will seek retribution." Desperation overshadowed reason as John, consumed by grief, agreed to the necromancer's terms. Lucius promised to reunite him with Max, but the ominous undertone of the bargain lingered in the air. The air hung thick with an otherworldly tension as John stood with Lucius in the dimly lit, secluded space. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the ground, creating an eerie ambience for the ritual about to unfold. Lucius, draped in dark robes, began to chant ancient incantations, the words resonating with power that seemed to transcend the mortal realm. With a solemn nod, John agreed to the ritual, knowing that there was an unseen price to pay. Lucius handed him a ceremonial dagger, its blade glinting in the dim light. As John hesitated, he felt a shiver run down his spine, a premonition of the consequences yet to unfold. With a deep breath, John made a small incision on his palm, allowing a few drops of his own blood to fall on the ground. The ritual intensified, the air vibrating with an unnatural energy as Lucius continued his incantations. Shadows seemed to writhe and twist in response to the forbidden forces being invoked. As the ritual reached its climax, a sudden stillness fell over the space. The candles flickered, casted elongated shadows that seemed to reach out to the center of the ritual circle. Yet, there was no dramatic resurrection, no immediate sign that the supernatural had taken hold. John's heart sank, disappointment settling in as he stared at the lifeless form of Max, still laying on the ground. Doubt crept into his mind, and he questioned the wisdom of tampering with forces beyond comprehension. Lucius, undeterred, approached John, his eyes gleaming with a knowing intensity. "The resurrection process is not always immediate," he explained cryptically. "The forces at play operate on a different plane. Be patient, and all will be revealed in due time." Leaving John alone in the dimly lit space, Lucius disappeared into the shadows. The night seemed to stretch endlessly as John waited, a mix of anticipation and anxiety gnawing at him. Days passed, and John's hope waned with each passing moment. He began to question whether the ritual had been nothing more than a desperate attempt to grasp at the impossible. Doubt turned to regret, and regret to a bitter acceptance of the irrevocable loss. Then, on a cold and moonlit night, a soft whimper echoed outside John's doorstep. Startled, he opened the door to find a familiar silhouette in the shadows. There, in the pale glow of moonlight, stood Max, alive, breathing and wagging his tail. Overwhelmed with a mix of joy and disbelief, John knelt beside Max, his hands trembling as he touched the once cold fur that now pulsed with warmth. Tears welled down his eyes as he realized that, against all odds, his beloved companion had returned from the realm of the departed. In the days following Max's mysterious return, an unsettling undercurrent began to weave its way through John's once rejuvenated life. The air around Max seemed charged with an energy that John couldn't quite comprehend. Though the dog's physical appearance mirrored the Max he once knew, an intangible malevolence lurked beneath the surface. It started subtly, with Max displaying signs of restlessness and unease. He would often growl at shadows and fixate on unseen entities, his once friendly demeanor replaced by an unsettling intensity. John dismissed these behaviors as mere quirks, attributing them to the residual effects of the supernatural resurrection. The first ominous incident occurred on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. The mailman, a familiar face to Max, approached the front porch with the usual bundle of letters. Without warning, Max lunged at the unsuspecting mailman, teeth bared and a guttural growl emanating from his throat. John rushed outside, desperately pulling Max away as the mailman stumbled back, bewildered and frightened. Deeply troubled by the sudden aggression, John apologized profusely to the mailman, chalking it up to an inexplicable lapse in Max's behavior. Little did he know that this was only the beginning. Now we're going to have a short scare break while you ease your nerves. So while you're waiting, don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and stab that subscribe button right now. As doing so, you'll really help the professor spread his shadow of evil. Now, let's get back to the story. A week later, John invited his close friend, Alex, over for dinner. As they sat in the living room, reminiscing about old times, Max's demeanor shifted once again. Without any apparent provocation, Max lunged at Alex, teeth sinking into his arm. Shocked and in pain, Alex recoiled, the warmth of friendship replaced by confusion and fear. John, torn between loyalty to his friend and the inexplicable actions of his once beloved dog, struggled to contain Max. The aggression seemed uncharacteristic, and the wounds inflicted by Max's bite were a painful testament to dark forces that now seemed to control him. As the days passed, John couldn't shake the growing sense of foreboding that surrounded Max. The canine eyes, once filled with warmth, now gleamed with an unsettling intelligence that transcended the natural order. The connection between Max's resurrection and the malevolent behavior became undeniable. Late one night, John awoke to a strange noise emanating from the living room. He found Max standing in the darkness, a low growl reverberating through the stillness. As John approached, a profound sense of evil washed over him. He recoiled, realizing that once familiar presence of his beloved dog was now tainted by something far more sinister. In the shadows, Max's eyes glowed with an eerie intensity, and John felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The realization struck him like a cold gust of wind. Whatever had returned from beyond the veil of death was not truly Max. Max's malevolence, once directed at humans, now extended to the unsuspecting pets that roamed the area. One fateful afternoon, as John took Max for a walk in a nearby park, the malevolent force within his beloved dog manifested with a chilling intensity. A playful, fluffy retriever ambled towards Max, its tail wagging in friendly anticipation. In an instant, Max's demeanor shifted from calm to ferocious. He lunged at the unsuspecting dog, a snarl escaping from his throat. The bark echoed with terrified yelps as Max attacked, leaving the once happy canine companion bloodied and battered. John, horrified by the sudden burst of violence, struggled to restrain Max. Passers-by gasped and shouted for help, their shocked faces reflecting the disbelief of witnessing such unbridled aggression. With an immense effort, John managed to pull Max away, but the incident left a chilling realization in its wake. Max was a danger, not only to humans, but to all living things. Later that evening, the darkness within Max escalated to a horrifying climax. In the confines of their home, Max's once playful eyes bore into John with a sinister glint. Without warning, the dog lunged at John, teeth bared, an eerie growl escaping from his throat. John, in self-defense, grappled with Max, the struggle a twisted mirror of their once affectionate interactions. Realizing the danger Max posed, John managed to lock him in a room, barricading the door with a heavy piece of furniture. His mind raced, torn between the love he once had for Max and the undeniable malevolence that now consumed him. In a desperate bid to understand and control the supernatural forces at play, John reached for his phone. After a series of frantic calls, John found himself once again in contact with Lucius, the necromancer. Desperation and fear dripped from his voice as he explained the escalating horror of Max's actions. Lucius listened, his tone carrying an ominous weight. "The forces you tampered with cannot be easily subdued," Lucius explained coldly. "The only way to break the malevolent bond is through sacrifice. The balance must be restored, and only the offering of a soul can quell the darkness that now consumes your companion." A heavy silence hung in the air as John processed the chilling revelation. Sacrifice, an unimaginable act that demanded the ultimate price. The weight of the decision pressed upon him as he grappled with the realization that to save others, he might have to sacrifice himself. The memories of joyous days and unconditional companionship flooded John's mind as he stood at the precipice of an unimaginable decision. The bond he shared with Max was forged through countless moments of loyalty and love. Max had been his confidant, his source of comfort, and the one constant presence in his life. In the quiet solitude of his home, surrounded by the echoes of Max's once playful barks, John wrestled with the torment of an impending sacrifice. The choice laid bare before him, the ultimate act of love to free his companion from the malevolent forces that now gripped him. Torn between the unbearable pain of parting and the knowledge that Max's existence had become a twisted semblance of life, John confronted the stark reality of his decision. As he looked into Max's eyes through the locked door, the gleam of malevolence lingered, and a shiver ran down his spine. With a heavy heart, John steeled himself for the sacrifice. Memories of Max's exuberant puppyhood, the shared walks, and the silent companionship during the darkest hours fueled his resolve. Every wag of Max's tail and every glance of unconditional love etched themselves into John's consciousness. As the moon cast a pale glow through the window, John approached the locked room. The air was thick with sorrow, and a tear slid down his cheek as he whispered his final words to Max through the door. "I love you, Max. I always will." John opened the door, and Max, sensing the solemnity of the moment, regarded him with an almost understanding gaze. In the hushed stillness, John embraced Max for the last time. The room seemed to hold its breath as John, with a heavy heart, uttered the words that would seal his fate. "I offer my soul for you, Max. May you find peace beyond this darkness." In that moment of profound sacrifice, a quiet calm settled over the room. The malevolent energy that had gripped Max receded, as if acknowledging the weight of the sacrifice made in the name of love. As the echoes of the ritual subsided, John felt a profound emptiness envelop him. He had willingly given up a part of himself, not out of desperation, but as a testament to the love that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Max, freed from the malevolent forces, lay peacefully on the floor, his once troubled eyes now serene. In the wake of the sacrifice, John felt a bittersweet sense of closure. He had relinquished a part of his own existence to spare his beloved companion from a fate worse than death. The room, once haunted by shadows, now held a somber tranquility. With a heavy heart, John whispered a final farewell to Max, embracing the profound sacrifice he had made in the name of an undying bond. As he closed the door, the weight of loss and love lingered in the stillness, a testament to the extraordinary lengths one would go to preserve the purity of a cherished connection. Days after John's sacrifice, a concerned friend arrived at his home, unaware of the profound events that had unfolded within. The door creaked open, revealing a stillness that hung heavy in the air. The friend called out, the sound of their voice breaking the silence. As they ventured deeper into the house, they discovered the scene that unfolded in the room where the sacrifice had taken place. There, lying side by side, were the lifeless forms of John and Max. The friend, overcome with grief and confusion, knelt beside them, a heavy sadness settling over their heart. In the dim light, the bond between man and dog endured even beyond the mortal realm. John's final act of love had broken the malevolent forces that had ensnared Max, leaving them both at peace. The room, once tainted by supernatural energies, now held a solemn tranquility, as if the sacrifice had forged a bridge to a realm beyond human understanding. As the friend grieved for the loss of the two cherished souls, a quiet rustle drew their attention. At the entrance of the room stood a mysterious figure, draped in dark robes. The friend, startled by the sudden presence, looked up with questioning eyes. The necromancer, Lucius, spoke in a voice that echoed with ancient wisdom. The sacrifice restored the balance, and the darkness has been quelled. In the name of love, a soul willingly offered itself to protect another. With a swift and purposeful movement, Lucius approached John's lifeless form. He bent down, his hands emanating an otherworldly glow as he whispered incantations that only the spirits could comprehend. In that moment, the ethereal connection between the living and the departed unfolded. As the lifeless bodies of John and Max were lifted from the earthly realm, carried by unseen forces, Lucius remained a stoic guardian of the transition between the worlds. The friend, awestruck by the mysterious events that unfolded, could only watch as the necromancer performed the final rites. The room, now devoid of its occupants, held a profound silence. The supernatural energies that once permeated the space seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a sense of closure and peace. In the wake of an extraordinary sacrifice, the veil between life and death had been woven with the threads of love, binding the destinies of man and companion in an eternal embrace. As Lucius departed into the shadows, the door closed gently behind him. The neighborhood, forever changed by the supernatural tale, settled into a quiet calm. The story of John's sacrifice and the bond that defined the limits of existence became a whispered legend, a testament to the enduring power of love that could traverse even the darkest realms. And so, in the quiet aftermath of an extraordinary journey, the memory of Max and John lingered in the hearts of those who bore witness to his tale, a haunting melody that reminded them of the delicate dance between the living and the departed, forever entwined in the tapestry of an extraordinary, otherworldly love. And if you're still looking to fulfill your thirst for more horror, don't forget to check out this next video, unless of course you're frozen with fear already.